Today we're ranking every album by the Flaming Lips. Let's get into it. In last place I have hewdy. This is like just generic psychedelic electro. I mean, it fuses more electronic like stuff with more vintage synthesizers, but like it doesn't feel like unique at all. Almost, it's just really boring for the Flaming Lips standards. I'm feeling a 5.5 out of 10 for this one. Next up, I have Oh My God. This one is their second album. It's more gritty. It's maybe even more noisy, but also way more messier than their debut. It is just, it's not fun to sit through all the way. Even though the second track, on Millions or Billions or something, it's not a really interesting title, or it is, but it's too long. That song is amazing, and maybe the first like amazing song, probably, like an early highlight. Check that one out. But like the rest of it is just a slog to get through. 6 out of 10. It's fine. Next up we have Here It Is, and this one is just, this is their debut. It is noisy. It is. It feels a bit like alternative rock. It feels like they're taking from their noise rock contemporaries, and they're not really adding too much of their own style, even though there's some great tracks here, like With You, and the With You reprise, 6.5 out of 10. Next up is King's Head, a more recent just album from them, and it's like Oxymmelody meets the soft bulletin, and that explains the things I like and the things I don't like. 7 out of 10. Next up I have American Head. This one feels like, this one is also kind of a combination. I didn't say much about King's Head. It's just Flaming Lips and Autopilot, and this is too, but feels more like a mix of Yoshimi and Embryonic. 7.1 out of 10. Next up I got Telepathic Surgery. This album's pretty good. It's out of their first 3 albums. It's the best one, in my opinion. It feels like the best production, the best noise rock, and has some great material, even if there are also some weaker material alongside it. 7.3 out of 10. Next up I got The Terror. This one is also pretty good, even if nothing really stands out except for the final track. It is a really interesting, bleak, kind of repetitive, electronic kind of stuff. Of course with their psychedelic touch as well. Even if it feels like it's missing something. Still good, 7.4 out of 10. Next up I got Hit to Death in the Future Ahead. This one is the first album I'm going to be talking about from the alternative rock period in the 90s. So after that, there's a couple albums, and they're incorporating more psychedelic elements here, but it's also pretty messy, even if there's quite some, like, couple of great tracks here. 7.7 out of 10. Now I'm going to be getting into the really good stuff, starting with In a Priest-Driven Ambulance. This is the album before Hit to Death. This one is just excellent. It still has a noisy element, but it's more like alternative rock. And I just really dig it. There's just a lot of great stuff on there. Even if some of the noisier tracks do not really work as well. 9.1 out of 10. Next up I have Transmissions from the Satellite Heart. This one is like one of the other alternative rock albums. This one came after Hit to Death. This one has one of their biggest hits, She Don't Use Jelly. And it's an excellent. The production is way better on this one. And also just more solid overall. Nothing really much to say. It's just better. Just better. 9.2 out of 10. Next up I have Zyreka. This one's maybe the most controversial, since it's kind of like you need 4 CD players to hear the song properly, because all of the individual songs, like, parts are in there. But it's excellent. It's easily there. It feels like the soft bulletin, but like more like experimental rock, and it's fantastic. Which it makes sense because they made these albums around the same time with the same budget. Excellent album, 9.5 out of 10. Now we're moving into the top 5. To start at number 5, we have Yoshimi battles Pink Robots. Everyone loves this one. It's psychedelic pop at its finest. It's them doing pop. It's really where the production gets more refined, even if it's not totally refined. It's excellent. It's excellent. Everyone knows it's excellent. It's really consistent, even if I don't think it's as good as some of their other albums, as you'll see later. Like, I don't think this is their second best or best album. Like, this is definitely the other albums are definitely like a little better than this, but still an excellent album. 9.6 out of 10. Extremely good. Next up is their double behemoth, Embryonic. This one's like pretty crazy. It feels like a band out of the 60s. It feels like the 60s. It's extremely like kind of experimental rock, even psych rock, like very psych rock sound. Even though this album clips a lot, I love how it sounds, sort of. This kind of lo-fi 60s sound, it's great. And as a double album, it's really fantastic. It has a lot of amazing moments on it, front to back. I mean, it has like some iconic songs as well, like Silver Trembling Hands. Yeah, as a double album, this is fantastic. 9.7 out of 10. Only a couple misses. Next up at number 3, I have Clouds Taste Metallic. This album is near perfect. Even the weaker tracks are still great, and this is their final like alternative rock album from the 90s, and it's easily the best one. The sound, like the production on this thing is so beautiful. Like it's very orchestrated, even if it's still like alternative rock. At number 2, I have easily their most underrated album, At War with the Mystics. This album is underrated. Like, I was kind of skeptic going into this one because this one has a way lower score, or like on all like fronts than Yoshimi, and I like this one more. This is maybe their best sounding album. Like this thing sounds amazing, and this is like maybe like this is where they like take more psychedelic rock and kind of more rock influences. It feels like there's psychedelic pop from Yoshimi, but fused with rock and just better sounding music, honestly. This thing is amazing. It feels a bit like a throwback to the 70s age of psychedelic rock. Very immaculate produced albums instead of like Embryonic in the 60s. 9.9 out of 10. Which brings us to number 1, the Soft World. This album is perfect. This album is perfect, front to back, no question. This album, it has such a unique sound palette. It's neo psychedelia at its finest, but it feels like almost like art rock, which I really love. Like this is nothing in their discography sounds like this album, quite like this. And I think it's the production. Like this is like the middle point in the discography. You can hear it, and it's just beautiful. Like they've never made this epic of an album. This album feels like the most epic by far too. It's just a beautiful album. It feels like they were trying to get a beautiful album, and trying to get something with like all of the homemade stuff they had. Like this feels like DIY. It's not a shame. DIY. And at its finest. Like they were DIY, but they were reaching for the stars, and they made it. They didn't crash. 10 out of 10 album. See ya. Next ranking is going to be lightning bolts.